Man vs. 50 with author Richard Maloof. Real advice and real stories on topics, regardless of age, and important to the modern man. Now, here's Richard.
All right.
Howdy.
How's it going?
Good.
Good. Good. Good to see you again.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. So this week we're going to stay on the same vein and talking about regret.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a topic that amazing how we both have very different views of this topic, right?
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I think it's an important topic that we talk about. And not everything we talk about is going to be so deep and heavy.
Yeah, right.
So we have some fun stuff coming, but
we're really likable guys.
yeah.
I mean,
people are like asking me these questions like, why are you guys talking so much? And I'm like, well, it's very important. I think it kind of goes back, and I was listening to a podcaster and he was talking about the knowledge, like a lot of podcasts are about teaching something or discussing something or, whatever. And the older you get, the knowledge, because he was talking about a guy who was 60 years old and finally started a podcast, and it was just the knowledge of life that he brought. And that's kind of us, right?
Yeah.
So, and the fact that you're now a year older.
yes.
And this is the best time of year for me because from now until November, you're older than
I'm
me.
older than you. Yeah.
So you have a little bit more,
Yeah.
Maybe I can come to you as an elder, right? And you can help me out with some things.
Listen, Junior. Easy.
Yeah, exactly. So any feedback from last week, anything about mistake regret? Because I've had a lot of people reach out who watched the video and basically were, saying thank you. It gave them a lot to think about, and they have dwelled on a lot of regret. I was watching something else, and they were talking about, it's a hot topic. It's a topic that people talk about, right? And people were saying that there's things that people regret from high school that they still carry on with them, and it affects their life to this day.
Yeah.
And it really got me thinking about the things we talked about.
Yeah.
And how, mine was, 20 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some of the big ones, right?
Yeah.
And I was watching, I'm doing a lot of watching and reading and things like that, and talking about how regret can also cause deception, which I found very interesting. I'm like, okay, let me think about this a little bit. And the deception is, I would have been happier. I would have been better. I would have been better off. It's almost, you look at your current state of life and maybe there's things you're not happy with. And then you decide that it was because I made that decision.
If I would have done this different.
Yes. So that's very interesting to me. Very interesting to me.
Well, but it's true.
Yes.
I mean, I can see that.
Yes. So it got me thinking a lot, right? A lot. And one of the things that I was looking at when we were talking about this is the mistake regret, but also opportunity regret. And I kind of broke things down into two sides. Mistake, we talked about, affects the soul. It's deep. It hurts. Opportunity is something that affects your inner voice. Okay. So one we have affects the soul, deep hurt, pain. And the other one is something that affects your inner voice. What do you mean by that? What I mean by that is that it's that voice in your head that I wish I would have done that. If I just would have I should have taken that job offer, or it's just a different regret. I feel like mistake regret is so personal. It's more personal decision, but opportunity is something I wish I would have done that I didn't do. But the good thing about opportunity regret, if you will, you still can do something about it.
Okay.
For instance, right? So I wanted to go to ASU so bad out of high school. I wanted to live in Arizona, go to ASU. It's going to be amazing, right? I applied to ASU. I got accepted. And at the last minute, I chickened out.
Really?
Okay. I was 18 years old, living with my grandparents. I felt like I needed to take care of them. I lived in a small town. Even though I knew I was eventually going to leave, the timing wasn't right in that moment for me to go.
Okay.
So I felt like I just had to make a decision. And I regret, looking back on it, what an experience that could have been for me. How much different my life would have been, whatever. It just wasn't meant to be.
Yeah.
It just wasn't the right time. So it was an opportunity I missed. Again, the problem is with regret, you make a decision in the moment with the information you have. As you learn and the journey continues in your life, you can look back as you have new information. Wow, I would have been 18 living in, Phoenix, Arizona, and how amazing that would have been, right? The sun, I was young, I had no worries. What an amazing time that would have been. It just wasn't meant to be my journey. And I had limited information at the time at 18 to go off of. So what, you know what I mean? I mean, I can't blame myself.
No.
But again, with the opportunity, I don't look back on it. I'm like depressed. It wasn't a relationship. It wasn't a mistake. So it's different than mistake. It was just an opportunity I passed up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, if I would have gone to Arizona State University,
I wonder what
would my life look like, right? So that's the difference, right? And I think or again, as we get older, business opportunities, I had that condo in Austin and I bought it during COVID. And then 9 months later, the realtor, even though I have my real estate license, I use someone local just to handle the residential stuff because I did more commercial stuff.
Yeah.
So it was easier to have
Cleaner.
someone.
Yeah.
So he called me 9 months later and he's like, hey, you want to sell your condo? I'm like, what are you talking about? It's been 9 months. It was amazing, right? I bought it. The timing was right when I bought it. Like, perfect. The condo was, I think, at the time I bought it, 7 years old. And the people who had bought it were the original owners. The wrapping of the dishwasher, the cover, like that clear foil was still on it.
Wow.
They had never lived in there.
Oh my
They
gosh.
just bought it. Apparently they lived in Houston, and if a hurricane came, that was their safe spot.
Must be nice.
So they decided to sell it. I bought it. It was basically brand new and got it for an amazing opportunity, amazing price. And 9 months later, it almost doubled in price.
Wow.
Because of the housing shortage, inventory was down.
Everybody moving out.
You know how everything was going crazy.
I work remote now.
Yeah. So, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I sold it. And I think to myself, I mean, I could have had that thing paid off. I could have used it as a retirement, whatever. But I saw this opportunity, if you will, in front of me, and I took it. And then I had regret after I sold it.
Sellers? Is it seller's regret?
Yeah, it's like cognitive dissonance or something like is that it, or something like buyer's remorse. I don't know.
Right.
So it literally was. But again, okay, like it doesn't. I don't wake up in the middle of the night with it.
Right.
It was just an opportunity that I had, and I took it.
Yeah.
So I think there's just such a vast difference between the two.
I had one that I was about 30-ish, right around there, maybe early 30s. We had both of the boys, so whatever age that puts me. I grew up with a guy who was a drag racer and had his own shop, Conrad Racing Engines, and I used to just go over there and watch him just make stuff. He was an apprentice at NASA.
No.
And I mean the smarts on this guy, amazing. Anyway, he at a time he was racing with Big Daddy Don Garlitz and Snake Prudhomme. I mean, he was out there with the guys setting top speed records. Had a horrible wreck. It messed up his hand, so he just ended up doing just racing. Well, in his 50s, he decided he was gonna, just kind of do some amateur racing, and he had always raced just amateur wise, but he got a motorcycle, and he loved it. I thought it was great, but it was a little more than he wanted to do. And he said, I'd really love for you to race the motorcycle. He goes, you're the perfect build, perfect weight. I think it'd be great.
Right.
And I went, I could, and I started, having the realistic thought of what happens, right? I mean, there's no protection, like a car has a cage, right? And then here's this motorcycle. Right. If you fall off of that motorcycle, who knows what happens? Right. So it's a very, very, something totally different than what your example was. But that was an opportunity because Lori and I had talked, well, what if we did racing? What if we try to get a car or whatever? We work with Eddie and do all this with him. But it was a motorcycle was going to be my entry into the sport, and decided, nah, not with the kids at this age. I don't need life insurance,
Right. So, and I think that's a great example because it was an opportunity.
Yeah.
That presented itself that was amazing. But with the information you had at the time, you made a decision, and now you have more information and you look back and like, wow, that would have been amazing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think, again, regret is almost, I hate to say one's fun. To think about.
But you can smile about it.
But you can smile about it. It's almost like, what would I do if I won the lottery?
Right.
You know what I mean?
That would have been cool.
Yeah. It's kind of like that. So I think opportunity regret is just a little bit different. And I'll give you an example, kind of like, when I watch Shark Tank sometimes, and you get, someone older on there that came up with something, and I feel like that's opportunity regret that drove that person to continue to figure something out, right? Okay. Because, with opportunity regret, you can still, I think, correct it. It just might not look the same as the original opportunity you passed up. It might look different, but ultimately you're achieving the same goal, right? Mm-hmm. So if I wanted to live in Scottsdale, and I missed out on ASU, but I could still move to Scottsdale as an adult in work. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's kind of like that. Or I've always wanted to open a business. I had an opportunity to open a business. I didn't do it. Okay, I might have regrets about it, but guess what? I can still do that. Mm-hmm. But the one thing with opportunity regret, you have two sides to it. You have one at the moment you have information, you make a decision. You can still cure that in the future, but it could bring up some insecurities and things like that of I'm making excuses why I don't do it. So I'll give you a good example. Starting this podcast. Mm-hmm. For the last over a year, I've been wanting to start a podcast, right? And to be honest with you, I was very afraid because I didn't know what I was doing. I had talked to a couple people and they started talking about, you need this and you have to do this, and to get your podcast on all these different platforms, Spotify and Amazon and Apple, you got to do this and that. And I'm like, oh, I thought you just turn on a camera and start talking. Yeah. It's so much more than that, right? But because this person explained it a certain way, I had so many fears of starting a podcast. And granted, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, especially if you're doing it alone or two people or whatever. It's a lot of work. There's so much that goes into it, but it's doable. But I let my fear get in the way, and I kept coming up with excuses. Oh, I'll get to it tomorrow, or I don't have this or I need that. And it just one day turned into 2, and that turned into 2 weeks, turned into 2 months, and it just kept stalling. I was afraid. I was afraid. And then I was afraid of getting on there and just like, well, what do I talk about or what are we doing or what? And I had this vision of Man versus 50 because I'm like, as we've aged, I'm like, man, this is like difficult. There's a lot of stuff that goes on. And, you know, and future shows we'll be talking about different things, not just this part of being aging in the journey, but it's going to be, you know, the aesthetic journey, the relationship journey, the friends journey, the everything that I've experienced or gone through and that you've experienced and gone through that has kind of shaped us to get to where we are now. So I think fear and insecurities can stall you, you know, can make, you know, you'll stand in place if you continue to have fears and insecurities of righting this wrong, if you will, that was an opportunity that you passed up, right? Or I'm afraid to move to Scottsdale, or I'm afraid to move to, you know, out of the country. I would love to move out of the country, but I'm afraid. And you know what you know my excuse is? The language barrier. That's my excuse. Like, really? I mean, I'll figure it out, right? I moved from Illinois to Texas. I figured that language barrier out, right? So, you know, I just think it is something that you can fix, but there is a lot of stuff. So I kind of thought of, you know, 5 things that you should do that I did personally to get over my fear of starting a podcast. So the first thing I had to do is identify what my fear was. My fear was, it seems like a lot of technical work and a lot of things I have no idea about, lighting, sound, this, that, film. And oh, that was my excuse. I can't do this. This is too much. This is too technical for me. So I had to identify those fears and figure out how to overcome that fear.
Yeah.
And, or I'm 52, not 20. So what am I doing trying to be a YouTuber or whatever? Because I'm too old. So I just kept putting things in front of me that kept me from achieving that. So, you know, I really had to map out my plan.
Okay.
Because if I didn't identify the fear or the insecurity, how can I map out my plan or solution to get over those things, to continue to work toward, you know, achieving this thing that I wanted to do? Because I really, really wanted to do it. So then I'm like, okay, where do I start? Okay. So identify the fear, you know, map it out, and then set up benchmarks. Okay. So the first thing I did was buy a mic stand and a mic. I had no idea what I was going to do with it, but I bought it just to start because I figured, well, you can't do a podcast without a microphone, right?
True.
Little did I know what an XLR cable was, where it plugged into, how I got sound onto a video. There was a million things, right? But I couldn't conquer everything at one time. I had to basically set little benchmarks to get to that place, right? And achieve them, make sure I'm achieving them, and hold myself accountable to achieve them. And then I had to surround myself, and then I think this is the number one thing, the number one most important thing, surround myself with people who supported what I was trying to do.
Well, sure.
Okay?
Yep.
You know, you, Michelle, all the people in my life, my nieces, who really stood behind and support what you do. Because if you don't have a good support system, it is amazing how important that is.
Yeah.
And as we get older, it's amazing how you realize who really genuinely cares about who you are as a person. And that's a whole nother show for us, but your circle gets small as you get older.
Yep. You've got to surround yourself with like-minded individuals,
right,
in order to achieve your goals.
Exactly.
You just have to.
Right.
And if they're not like-minded, either your goals change and you leave behind what you really wanted to do, or you don't associate with them.
Right. And it's amazing, like, how big of a difference that makes. Because there are days, there are days where I'm just kind of like, what am I doing? Like, is this even something, and then you feel like nobody cares. And I heard someone say this, and, with my family and stuff like that, and it wasn't about my family, but they just said, if you put out content and you're expecting your family to be all into it and be, oh, it's amazing, blah, blah, just don't, because they don't really care. It's going to be for other people. It's for people out. This world is a big place.
Yeah.
And there's people out there that want to hear this message or talk about, and hopefully when they hear us talking, they're like, oh my gosh, this opportunity, mistake, or regret, and that I had, I'm going to try these steps. Because we talked about what Ray Kroc started McDonald's after he's 50 or whatever. So it's never too late. And us being in our 50s, starting a podcast, I think we have a lot more to say than I have a lot more to say than I did when I was 20. And
we have a lot. I don't know. I talked a lot when I was 20. But I didn't. I talked a lot, but I didn't have value, right? And I think we have value now.
Right.
So I think the knowledge that we've amassed over the years and the people that we've been around have, helped us formulate those, I don't know about articulate things, but it's given us a lot of things that we could share with people to go, hey, been there, done that.
Right.
What about, let me help you out with this.
Right. And I think it's kind of like this. It's when I was in my 20s, I could have knowledge about something I read or something I saw on TV.
Yeah.
Or now these kids, on social media or whatever. Right. But there's a value in saying I can tell you because I actually live that.
Yeah.
And I think that comes with age.
Yep.
And, again, we're sitting here, we're not old man, get off my lawn guys, but we are definitely, we have a lot of different life experiences and we can talk from the heart about that. So, and then I think the other part is don't be afraid to pivot. Yeah. It's okay. Okay. And I'll give you a great example. I love cars. And actually we have a show coming up that's about our favorite movie and TV cars, which is going to be fun.
Yep.
But don't be afraid to pivot. So when I started doing video, it was all about cars, which I love, and I will still do those videos because I love cars.
Yeah.
So I'll still do those videos, no questions. But as I got into it, I realized that there was more I wanted to say. And there's a lot of car guys out there that know a lot more about cars than I do. I come from the love of cars from a passion standpoint. I'm not really like changing oil or doing that kind of stuff. I just I'm not interested in that part of it.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I had some throttle bodies put on my my car. And up until about 2 months ago, I couldn't have told you what a throttle body was. Isn't that pretty sad? But my point is, it's not why I love cars.
Right.
I love for the way it makes me feel as I'm driving, the experience. That's my passion. Other people are gearheads and they can tell you more about my engine and my car than I can.
Yeah.
But I don't come from that angle. I come from a passion of loving cars, right? And a couple of videos I've done with comparing cars and things like that, and we've talked. That's how we got started with the about your car, because we love it.
Yeah,
it's a passion.
Yeah,
but it wasn't how I wanted to come at this, so I had to pivot. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, what are people going to think about me? That I went from cars to now talking about regret and life's journey.
Your feelings.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's okay because that's
who we are.
That's who we are. And this was the way I wanted to come at my podcast.
Yep.
And so I just think it's okay. And don't be afraid. And at the end of the day, don't worry about what people say or think because it doesn't matter. And the one thing that I have learned, one of the life lessons I've learned as I've gotten older, I really don't care what people think. If I live my life based on that, it's like...
You're never happy.
You just can't. I mean, some of the comments on our podcast, it's like, are these people just bored? Like some of them, I'm just like, yeah. They like make comments like about my hair or something like that.
Trolls.
I don't care. I don't care. Like, who cares? If you're not listening to what we're saying and really getting some value about that, it's okay. It's not for you. But I mean, to take time to actually try to put someone down or insult someone, it's just like, come on, let's, but it's okay. I mean, my skin's thick, your skin's thick. Yeah. It does not bother us. And you learn that getting older. It doesn't matter. And that goes back to our, when we talk about that small support group and people around you who love you and believe in you. And it's like, you know what? Keep going. Don't stop. And listening to some people online that I watch sometimes get advice or, experiences they've been through starting podcasts. It doesn't matter. Just like, who cares? You don't think anybody's watching. You don't think anybody cares. It doesn't matter because it'll come. It'll happen. It just takes time. And that's okay. And guys said, you can be amazing at what you do and unknown. So the key is, you just got to keep going and get known because you eventually will rise to the top if you have something to say and it comes from the heart. And so I think that's the angle we're at. Again, this is totally organic. We're not reading off teleprompters. This is all coming from, we sit, we come to the studio, we sit down, we start talking. This morning you asked me what we're talking about. I kind of gave you the topic and we don't discuss it.
That's it.
We just start talking. And that's what I think, hopefully the value people will get out of it. Because I'm not scripting these experiences. I'm just telling you, this is my life experience. There was another opportunity I was thinking about. And once we started talking, the one about going to ASU just came to my mind. So this is organic. And I think that's, again, hopefully people will get something out of what we're talking about. So opportunity, regret. I'm sure you'll have some more ideas and thoughts about
probably
that.
Next week.
Again, just identify the fears, map out the plan, set benchmarks. Don't beat yourself up if you can't launch a podcast tomorrow. It took me a month just to set up the studio, just to get everything right. I was in here playing on the microphones, talking. The first time I videotaped myself, I couldn't get sound. I didn't know what I was doing, but apparently these mics take, you got to turn the gain way up. I don't know. So I figured it out, right? By process of elimination. I'm still trying to figure it out. I mean, there's a lot of stuff we're still figuring out. So set achievable benchmarks. Don't kill yourself on one night. Oh, I didn't launch my podcast, whatever. So again, surround yourself. Thank you. I'm so glad I'm fortunate I have you. Surrounding myself with people that believe in it, support it. And again, don't be afraid to pivot. You might love cars, but that's not your message to the world. Figure out what that is. So, anything else? How was anything good this week?
I had snow on my birthday.
Yes, you did.
So
that was amazing.
I got to toss a snowball on my birthday here at home, which that was a first in 53 years.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So anyway,
that's crazy.
It's kind of a cool day.
Yeah. Snow on your birthday. That's memorable.
Very.
53. Could you see it?
Wow.
Listen here. I know.
Yeah, I went outside. It was cold. I tossed the snowball. I went back in where it was warm.
Yeah, I'm not. I grew up in that stuff, and I tell you what, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm really good. So,
how about you?
Yes. So, coming up, some of our future episodes will be about mindset and kind of talking about that kind of stuff. And do you know the story about the 4-minute mile?
I mean, I know of it.
Okay.
I actually ran a 4:54. Let me just throw that out there.
Wow.
But go ahead.
decades ago.
It was 30 something years ago.
Yeah, decades ago.
Oh my gosh.
So
35.
Roger Bannister,
Yeah.
in 1954.
Yep.
And I love this story. I've known about this story, and it's impactful. So in 1954, he was the first person to break the 4-minute mile.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 1954. So in 1942, the fastest time was 4.06.
Okay.
Okay. 4 minutes, 6 seconds. And during the war, it got down to 4.1. Okay.
401.
401.
Okay.
But no one broke it yet.
Okay.
And in 1952, he ended up breaking it.
Okay.
Okay. No one thought it could be done. Everyone said, your heart's going to explode.
Right.
It can't be done. It physically cannot be done. So he broke it in 1954. So from 1942, 406, then a few years later, it was 401. For 9 years, it was 401.
Okay.
Nobody could break it. No, it's just it. For 9 years.
Yeah.
He broke it in 1954. And in the next year, 5 people broke it. So the key is the mindset of something that someone didn't think could be done, but once someone achieved it, the mindset was it can be done, and they pushed themselves that much harder. 9 years, 401. After that, 5 in the next year.
Yeah. That's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And months after he did it, a woman broke 5 minute, which again was like the
Same.
4 minute, 5, same.
Yeah.
A few months, because he broke it. The mindset was
It can be done.
it can be done.
Yeah.
And he was like, I was listening to this guy, and he's like, if that's why you have a team, like a sports team, same players,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
not very good one year, and the next year win the championship. Same players.
Yeah.
Mindset.
Yep.
So we'll be talking about that in the future. I just
Cool.
thought that was a cool story about how one person achieving something, the mindset changed with everyone, and what a difference it made.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool.
So, all right, man.
All right.
I appreciate it. Thanks again.
Thanks for watching Man vs. 50 with author Richard Malouf. Don't forget to subscribe.